Period. For review.
All right. So, the Second Great Awakening. The Second Great Awakening is a period of religious revival that resulted in the conversions of both people's faiths and ideologies. A lot of people had conversion experiences, meaning that they had a moment where they came to understand their personal relationship with God and wanted to change their ways to become a more religious individual and give up their ways as sinners. The church membership really soared, and lots of new people joined churches, particularly women, and the time span of this movement stretched from 1820 to 1840. Election of 1800. In the election of 1800, the presidential campaign was between Thomas Jefferson and John Adams. Thomas Jefferson was the representative for the ideologies of the Democratic Republicans, while Adams represented the Federalist Party. The parties differed in ideologies. The Federalists wanted a stronger, more central government, while the Democratic Republicans favored a government that centered around yeoman farmer values, which are agrarian ideals. And this election was one of the bitterest and fiercest one to that date. And in the end, Jefferson beat Adams with 73 to 76 electoral votes. And this is the Jefferson presidency. Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the United States, served 2 terms from 1801 to 1809, and throughout his presidency, Republican values dominated the decisions of the government. The Louisiana Purchase, which is a $15 million purchase, which doubled the size of the nation, included French land west of the Mississippi River. Also during this presidency, the Naturalization Acts placed by John Adams were repealed. And as you can see, there's a beautiful picture of Jefferson right up there. The War of 1812. Right. So the War of 1812 spanned from June 18th, 1812 to February 18th, 1815. It's a lot of 18s. The premise of the war was the conflict over issues regarding relations between the U.S. and the United Kingdom after the Revolutionary War. And as you can see there, Britain was impressing U.S. sailors. There's a nice picture of it. During the war, Great Britain allied with Native American tribes, and there's a couple of those tribes, and attempted to challenge U.S. settlement within Northwest Territory. And this and tensions between the U.S. and Great Britain started the war. So, more about the war. All right. Tecumseh, all right, was the leader of the Native American / British supported Confederacy. The U.S. military strategy was to seize parts of Canada in order to suppress British and force British concessions on Indian issues. Two U.S. victorious battles near Lake Erie and the Battle of Thames, Tecumseh is killed and insurrection is destroyed. The U.S. wanted neutral shipping rights with Great Britain, which was the Battle of Bladensburg, and British attacks D.C. and destroyed the White House. The Treaty of Ghent officially ended the war. Restrictions on neutral shipping were taken off, and Great Britain returned prisoners of war to the U.S. And the aftermath of the War of 1812, U.S. people began to develop nationalistic pride, and they no longer regarded the U.S. as a collection of colonies, but as its own nation. And Native Americans were not so lucky or appreciative of the war.
The Monroe Doctrine was a doctrine by James Monroe which declared to European nations that the U.S. would not condone further colonization or puppet monarchs. If Europe tried to colonize any part of North or South America, it would have been considered an aggressive act, thus resulting in U.S. intervention. But the U.S. also could not intervene with European colonies or affairs. And here's a beautiful picture of Mr. Monroe. John Quincy Adams was the 6th president of the U.S., and he served only one term from 1825 to 1829. He won a 4-way election between Henry Clay, William Crawford, and Andrew Jackson, and the election was so close that the House of Representatives had to determine the winner of the race. And because Andrew Jackson had the most votes, he wasn't very happy when Adams won. Adams implemented programs to modernize the American economy. It included funds for infrastructure development to ease trade, a tariff to protect the domestic manufacturing industry, support for a national bank and currency, and a reduction in the national debt from $16 million to $5 million. The market revolution was an expansion of the marketplace that occurred in early 19th century America, and it began primarily through the construction of new roads and canals to connect distant communities together for the first time. Farmers began to produce product for the market instead of just for themselves, and many small craftsmen were driven out of business by bigger capitalist businesses. From the 1820s to the 1840s, Germans and Irish were the two largest groups of immigrants to the U.S. The Germans and the Irish were frequently subjected to anti-foreign prejudice and discrimination. Ultimately, the Germans and Irish assimilated into U.S. culture and society and became two of the most successful immigrant groups in the country.
All right, guys, and Jacksonian era coming up, starring ya boy, Andrew. Andrew Jackson. There we go. All right. Andrew Jackson was the 7th president of the United States of America, who served from 1829 to 1837. Jackson shifted the U.S. from a republic in which only landowners had the right to vote to a democracy in which all white men could vote. Andrew Jackson's Indian policy was considered brutal by many people even to this day. Jackson implemented the Indian Removal Act, which was an act that forcefully relocated Native Americans, which were the Choctaw, Chickasaw, Cherokee, Creek, and Seminole, from the east and south lands west of the Mississippi. Excuse me. Andrew Jackson used military force to remove the natives from their sacred homelands to reservations in the west. Many natives resisted, but those who complied had to endure a long and treacherous journey to the reservation, and this journey was known as the Trail of Tears. Many Cherokees died and suffered the unforgiving journey enforced by the U.S. Army. Okay. Manifest Destiny was the overarching theme of the 1800s, in which people believed that it was their God-given right to expand west and rid of anything in their way of doing so.
Excuse me, sir. Need you to come outside really quick. Hello? Hi.
Yes?
Is this your house?
Yes, this is my house.
Not anymore. It's fine. Sorry.
Excuse me?
No, I'm taking your house.
What do you,
It's my house.
This has been my house for... And it's been
That's-
passed down generation
I mean, that's great.
to
That's great.
generation.
But I'm gonna need you to leave.
Excuse
I
me?
mean, it's nice.
What?
You have a wonderful dog here,
Yeah.
but he's my dog too.
Yeah. What?
You're just get out of here.
What?
And don't come back.
What?
It's my house.
Excuse me.
No. It's my God-given right. It's my house.
Get-
Sorry.
What?
No, it's mine.
A majority of justification for expansion and annexation was manifest destiny. It could be seen as a positive motive, but unfortunately it also had some negative results. This ideology was a prime justification for the murder of natives and the removal of them. It was considered a divine right. All right, some AP exam tips. Study 15-30 minutes a day. Don't procrastinate. Watch videos on YouTube, most specifically the Adam Norris, God himself. Practice writing the essays. Make sure that your timing is good. And yeah. Okay, here's our all-star team. We have Caden we have John Quincy Nicholson right here, and then next to him we have Joe Jackson. Then we have Smitty Jefferson and Leaf Monroe. Thank you very much for watching our video, and
Please like and subscribe.
like and subscribe.
Definitely.
Thank you.
So exciting.